Hello everybody and welcome to our next talk on the third day of DebConf 22. I hope you are enjoying a lot. And please welcome to Jan Kiszka and his talk Riding on a Train with Debian. I will introduce himself quickly. Jan is working as consultant, open source evangelist and principal key expert engineer in the conference center Embed Linux at Siemens Technology. He's supporting Siemens business with adapting, enhancing, or strategically driving open source as platform for their product demands. He's maintaining several open source projects and is contributing to others, specifically in the area of real-time virtualization and with Linux tooling. So, welcome, Jan.
Yeah, thank you a lot and welcome to my talk. So, are you going to ride with Debian on a train? Let's see. So the talk is about how we embrace Debian for products, embracing in the positive sense, obviously. And I'm trying to give you some examples. Use cases, not all of them. I will rush through some of them and also try to simplify things, probably to a degree that my colleagues will beat me afterwards. But anyway. So my agenda for today is to give you, first of all, introduction of who we are as Siemens, then some of our Debian use cases in the products, not in the IT side, this is a different topic, and related open source activities around that, and well, summarize and hopefully get to a Q&A. So Siemens, what's that again? That was this great old inventor. 175 years ago, the company was founded by him. What did we do? Something with electric cars, also. Or something with public transportation, also. Phones, you may remember. Household equipment, yeah, not no longer these days. So actually, Siemens has changed over the time, and just to give you a brief idea of how large we are, it's still a 300,000 employees company. We have about 60 billion, a bit more, in revenue the past years. So it's a quite large company in the end. What changed over the time is how you are interfacing with Siemens. So as I said, the household equipment, this is no longer with Siemens. The brand is still there. The phones are history. But still you are interfacing with it and quite a lot and more than you possibly know. So again, marketing slides, but I like them quite a lot as they told a little bit of story around it. So first of all, Siemens is in various business active, and one of the area is, for example, design tools. So building products, cars, like, is usually done with tools that are produced by Siemens. It's manufactured in factories that comes with our equipment around it, not only in automotive, but also. E-charging, obviously, this is also an area we're active in, but also the whole network behind it. What changed over the past time is the power plants. That is a separate entity now, Siemens Energy. Another area, again, more on the side that you do not really recognize, it's more the professional, the commercial buildings, building automation, smart buildings around it, optimizing energy, optimizing the operation of these buildings. Also here, a lot of products, a lot of offerings are existing in this area. We already talked about also transportation, trains, commuting trains, local trains, far distance trains. You probably have seen one of them already, didn't notice, but also the wayside operation. And the infrastructure around it. And last but not least, again, a separate entity of Siemens, but still tightly related, is healthcare. So our healthcare colleagues, they are providing diagnostic machines and tools around it, and we will see also one example of that. That's another area we'll be active in. So in all these things, you can be sure to find, or not find, as you can't see it inside, as a normal user, a lot of open source. That is no surprise today if I talk about it. Maybe if I talked about it 10 years ago, people would say, oh my gosh, you're using open source. These days it's kind of normal. I mean, you can't really avoid it even if you would like to and try to. This is not actually totally new to us, obviously. Talking about openly is also not completely new to us. Working on this is not completely new to us. That's why we have actually for quite a while now a team where I'm part of, our central technology division, which is doing research, pre-development, and things like this. And this team is about really supporting the open source embedding, specifically Linux embedding into products and all the things around it. The team actually exists, although in a small scale at the beginning, for almost 20 years now. I'm with it for 15 years, almost. And we are involved in quite a few of these developments where open source, where Linux is inside at Siemens. By far not all of them, but quite a few. So our tasks are primarily around the internal consultancy. So how should the architecture look like if you want to use open source, or if you have to use open source? What open source components do you choose for my devices? That also often involves adaptations of these open source components to fit them better, to fix some issues or whatever. This is also an area where we are trying to support the developments. And last but not least, and also importantly, is the upstreaming of these results. So this is something also where we are engaged with. That means also that, it's also why I'm here, is the outreach communities, the collaboration, but also the building up of own open projects and own collaboration activities. So it's also our mission here. So just to give you an idea where we are, and now let's dive a little bit more into some use cases. And well, spoiler first, transportation is one of the use cases. So I've got these slides nicely from our colleagues working on the rail infrastructure side. That is basically everything which operates the train, which operates the infrastructure around it. And it starts basically, as my colleague told me, if the driver looks at this display and wants to see, okay, how far I can go, how fast I can go the upcoming track, that's the first system where you will hit a Debian system these days. It starts and continues in the operations center, so where the trains are planned and operated. Again, Debian systems around here. But also on the track side again, the operating, measuring with trains passing by, how long they are, access counting, for example, their interlocking systems. And it can continue. I mean, I'm not going to details here. It's a large infrastructure. You would be surprised to see this, how many systems are there. It looks like an IT infrastructure. I once had a look at it, and I'm wondering, oh my God, what are we running there? But it's usually hidden, obviously, from the rest of the world. And there are a lot of Debian systems inside these days. So the colleagues building up this infrastructure, well, they realized also quickly, that's probably a good idea to share something here, to have a common platform. That's what they built. They are building on top of Debian with most of the systems. There's some history in it as well, obviously, but right now everything which comes new is basically Debian-based, and it's also using the civil infrastructure project I'm going to talk about a bit later. And then comes something which is a kind of, a common layer for these products that they called core sheet S2L2. Secure super long live Linux. That's a base layer for them to build their products on top. It basically includes everything which is common to these products, but not common to the world or not even common to Siemens. That's specific around security hardening measures, secure boot measures specifically, onboarding, certificate management, things like this. So you have to fulfill quite a few of things. Obviously, we are operating such kind of critical infrastructure there. That allows basically the products in these ends, so the interlocking system, just take one example, to focus obviously on that specific logic and not deal with all the rest around it, with all the infrastructure. That's the benefit of that. And well, asking them, why are you using Debian? Well, Debian basically gets us focusing on these core topics. So we get a nice pre-built, pre-configured set of packages that just work for us. We don't need to compile them ourselves. We don't need to adjust them to ourselves. It just fits. It's way easier to manage also the open source compliance topics this way. It's a very important topic for us as well, like it is for you as community. Though we don't want to be incompliant with what we are shipping, and obviously we have to know for that what are the rules for these components. It basically fits on the infrastructure. All major architecture that we support here in these products are covered. So it's just great. And also a nice citation, I'm not sure if you can read it on the board, from one of our end customers, so to say, a rail operator. They actually asked for Debian. Yeah, we do want, if you're using Linux distribution, we do want Debian here for security reasons. Nice statement, I think. So this is one domain. There's more on this. I have to short a little bit here. But let's switch to the domains. Let's go to something else. MRTs, magnetic resonance imaging system. Not sure, I hope you haven't had to be in one of them. But these are also large machines to diagnose basically, all kinds of issues in your body, and actually also on material, but this is a different topic here. It's about the healthcare scenario. So what is this MRI system about? Just a quick view through this. It's a large machine gathering data from these coils, these measurement coils, operating basically when a certain measurement is taken, how the patient is moved along this the measurement tube, gathering the data, synchronizing that, and then in the end reconstructing an image from it. So a doctor can see on the front end in the end, okay, that's the situation I find here. That's in a nutshell the system. So there is the number crunching part of it, there is the control part of it with certain real-time requirements to get these things synchronized, and then there's the front end. The front end is not that interesting in this context, but the number crunching aspect, the computing aspect is interesting because this is where we are using Linux. And that actually for quite a while by now. It's a big server system, so the colleagues were pretty early in adopting 64-bit architecture on x86 with it, and GPU computing is massively used there. Basically, the more power you throw at it, the more computing power you throw at it, the more accurate get your measurement, and the more real-time you can go with the measurement. So we are using 64-bit Linux actually for more than 15 years by now on these machines. The measurement control, as I said before, this real-time aspect has been now co-located with the computing aspect on the same measurement machine, a big server machine. So we are having co-located real-time and number crunching workload on these machines. For various reasons, we are using here the real-time extension Xenomai, which is, well, beneficial in our scenario for large real-time applications, and it's actually, as it's one of our key product using it, it's now maintained also by Siemens. So one of my side activities is to keep this project running, not only for our machines, but in general. These platforms have a long history, as I said, on Linux, and we also have some history on trying out and using for a while different distributions. So by now the colleagues settled over Debian. For reasons of stability, I'm not going to mention any kind of competing solutions here, but we had stability issues with those in the past. Long-term availability is a topic. I mean, these things cost easily $1 million or more. You don't want to throw them away because your software is outdated, obviously, which is a quite common pattern you find with all of our machines, long-term support. And also, again, open source license compliance. So if I ask the colleagues, that's all the great things, what are actually things we would complain about? And this is the feedback I'm just citing here, got back, yeah, you know, we want to plan our product releases with the Debian releases. Oh, you are synchronizing this already. Yeah. But then the Debian release is not really predictable. Yeah, there's a reason for that. But anyway, this is the feedback I got, and we know why you are doing it, why you are waiting a week longer or even a month longer to get things done. And it actually, to be fair, we actually already released products before Debian Bullseye was ready, and it was not an issue at all. In the end, we could easily update later on, and it was not really a problem for the package at that point, which weren't actually officially released yet. So it's doable. Move forward to a different domain, process automation. Not sure what title is there. Okay, great. Process automation, what is this about? So it's a wide field of things, food production, chemical industry, pharmacy. These systems, these processes need to be operated. They need to be coordinated. You can imagine that something has to be processed there, has to be moved forward, and there are control systems involved in this, well, computer systems to be simplified. And that's an area where we also have offerings in. So just to see pharmacy, there has been some vaccination productions, apparently running on Debian. Not to mention anyone who was using this, but there has been quite a few cases. And just to pick one product out of this, it's a communication system, so yet another gateway to say, but obviously it has specific functionality in this domain. So it connects certain networks in this factory environment and acts as a firewall, acts as a protocol translator. It's a kind of a flexible system that the customers in this specific domain can program and adjust to these, well, usually rather complex networking and communication environments. That system, well, at least under that name, is rather new. The solution is not that new. That system has a nice data sheet I'm citing from. I get a weird visualization here. And if you look at, not too much in the details, but if you look at the things that I marked there, you see it's being advertised with robust Linux Debian-based. So that means in that domain, that makes a difference, that makes a point. So the users there are happy with that, and our internal users are also happy to push that forward and mention that this is a Debian-based solution for your process automation. A great thing. More networking. This is a platform I would like to highlight here because it also shows, well, what kind of modern technology goes into industrial automation. It's basically about enabling an infrastructure to additionally load apps, as we call it today, applications into something which usually it was rather static and predefined in classic way. So this is a system coming from the industrial communication area, so switches, routers, things for robust environments. And this system specifically was designed to enable loading specific apps into that, and I just highlighted one of these things so you can get an idea. I'm not sure if it's very well readable. There are, again, gateways and routers involved here connecting different types of networks, and then you see here more or less to the side one box, the Scalence LPE device, which allows to inject an industrial device into this network which can sideload or which can load additional apps on it. So this is the device, so to say, well, yet another box. Sorry, colleagues. But this is, again, a Debian-based system, in this case an ARM64 device, a couple of connections, network connections. The key element here on that is, it allows to run Docker apps on this. Well, for ARM64, obviously. So there's a use case for that. If you put your network filtering algorithms into a Docker container, you can put it here, or analysis things. You can put data processing applications also on this device and attach it directly to a lower level on these industrial field buses. Again, a Debian-based product. So moving forward to the area of industrial PCs and HMI systems. This basically are what you say, well, it's my workstation PC, but just with a more metal housing around it and more robust and maybe fanless and things like this and longer living. That's industrial PCs, this area, and in HMI systems. So in the end, they are x86 machines usually these days. And obviously in the past, that was a natural choice to put Windows on top of that. That times has changed. I mean, Windows still plays a role here, but by far it's no longer the only one. It's kind of a 50-50 situation by now. So the question for us is, or was asked to us for our customers, well, what should I choose, Windows or Linux here? And as the amount of Linux requests increased over the years, obviously, we also looked into enabling an offering here. While Windows obviously was licensed through, this thing is basically our own offering. It's a Debian-based industrial OS, we call it. A system which pre-installs on these machines, which is pre-configured for the hardware around it. And it's advertised being Debian-based, long-living, having all the properties that our customers expect from these runtime environments, and also evolving over time. Again, here, important role plays the ability to run containers on top. Hot topic these days is to get all the AI acceleration working and keeping the whole thing well up to date while also having it robustly and long enough maintained. That's the area of the industrial PCs, the classic x86. If we scale a little bit down on this line, there's one box I would like to highlight here because it's kind of special as in this regard to being an also an open platform. I mean, you can install everything on these industrial PCs, and you can install everything on these machines here. It's an ARM-based machine. It's an IoT gateway, so it's not so much about the computing. Here, it's more about the interconnection again, but also the flexibility of that. Here we have the situation, actually we have two offerings for that. The one is the industrial, as I mentioned before, so the commercial support part, and the other one is an open source solution for that. It's an example image, as we call it. So it's like the Raspbian you can download for the Raspberry Pi. It's an open source project we have on GitHub. We have community support around it, and it's first of all, it's a board support package for this device. Well, ARM-based means it usually don't run the default Debian kernel on it, and the upstream kernel. It takes a while until you are there. That's the one role of this, to pre-integrate that. The other one is to give our customers a chance if they want to build their own images and not just take our predefined one. That's a technical way to describe this. So they can start using this project and build their own customizations on top and generate their own images they would like to have for their devices. And it's also special, as I said, as being an open source project for us. We actually not only interact with a normal support channel with our customers, we also interact now with a certain set of customers via GitHub issues and even pull requests. That thing is also extensible. So we have, for example, Google Coral AI card as an option to be pre-installed on that. It's a mini PCI card. And that also raises the question, so how to integrate the software stack of that. And there's been a nice talk of my colleague, Felix Mösbauer, at the Debian Reunion just a couple of weeks ago about how we fought and kind of solved, not really, the issue of integrating Bazel-built TensorFlow PyCoral for this device with Debian. It's still not perfectly solved, it's still not in an official Debian package, but it's a way forward. For now, it allows us to do this integration without having to ask the customer to go to Google first and then pull packages from there and then fiddle with the details, but really it's a pre-integration, it's possible. And our vision here is clearly that to get this thing done properly in Debian so that maybe the next but one version have it really as an official package, because all the parts we are integrating here are already open source, they're just not yet Debian packages and they're not easily packageable, to be fair. So in this context, or this device specifically, but also the other solutions, they need a way to describe images, to describe an installation, because the customer don't want to sit down and write or run an installer on the device. Basically, what they want to expect from us is a predefined image, and they want to build their own image. So for that, we need some tooling. And one of the tools that we developed over the past years for that and open sourced is the tool called Aether. That's a build system, so to say, a little bit like Yocto in the sense that you can describe image builds this way. But also way less than that Yocto because it uses Debian and the binary feed as input. So this has been presented a couple of times, I think first time here at DebConf 17. It has been evolving over the time, and it's still something, I would say it's still unique on the market in the sense of combining certain things. You have tools for imaging. You have obviously tools for generating Debian packages, but you don't have anything on the market which combines them all, and in the end, the user will end up in a single repository, having everything that customization-wise is needed described in the single repository. That's what this thing can do. Image description, ad hoc packaging, so if you put your own application on top and the Debian packaging isn't officially done, or you don't want to do it upstream because it's a proprietary application, can be done. Package patching if needed for whatever good or bad reason, but also importantly sharing. So our colleagues from the S2L2 Linux, from the Rail infrastructure, their S2L2 thing is an Aether layer. It's a commodity layer which describes the common parts, the common packages, the common way of building the images as a layer, building on top of other things and providing in the end the product, which is also described as a layer in the end, the possibility to stack up the reusability this way. The tool is often enjoyed together with a configuration tool, configuration management tool called CAS, and that basically gives us for these aforementioned IoT 2050 device the experience that the user can just download the single repository, follow a very few steps, and get to the image themselves in a short time. This is actually now used in not all, but most of the Debian-based products at Siemens by now. I'm not saying that this is the reason why we are using Debian, that would be unfair so much, but it definitely contributes to it. Because it makes this typical problems that the users have of customizing things, of describing the variations you have in embedded space way easier than writing yet another shell script, which works fine for one product, but usually fails after the fifth one. Another thing I mentioned before regarding our involvement in open source was the CIP project. So just to mention it quickly, again, there have been talks about it in the past. So we started this project by now, I think it's 6 years ago, together with partners in the industry. Quite a few of them actually, or actually all of them are now also, were already consolidating over Debian as an input source. And the project is about basically filling a number of gaps that we see in the industrial space, in the industrial usage of Linux in general, but specifically also in Debian. So it builds on top of Debian, it uses the infrastructure there and the longevity of this and encloses certain aspects. So for example, we are releasing a super long-term stable kernel, so just took over the 4.4 kernel and now maintaining it a couple of years, 4 years longer, with a specific focus, not the broad span. And we are continuing to do this with 4.19 and 5.10 in the future. We are also part of the LTS and the ELTS project there, obviously building on top rather than inventing our own things, investing in testing, investing also in over-the-air update, secure boot topic. We have to solve for the other devices and not only for them the topic of secure booting on ARM64. That's also one of the activities here. And also mentioned before, security certification, but we have in some of the domains, we want to basically here share results and make them reusable. So this is one of the activities where we also as Siemens jump in and try to push basically our requirements in a collaborative way this way. Another project to mention here, probably known to you, is Reproducer Builds. We're also part of this in the form of sponsoring it. It's a strategic element for us because in the end, well, we have to trust the software supply chain, we have to trust you, and we want to make it even stronger. I don't want to argue with our internal colleagues about, okay, can we trust these binary packages? Yes, we can, it's reproducible. We need it for the packages, but we also need it for the images. So this is something we really want to focus on. It's an endeavor, we know, but it's important for us to be there and to get there. So you may wonder what's the relation now to Debian, direct relation. So our goal, our North Star is clearly upstream first, wherever possible. So this is a continuous process. You don't get there by one day and then you are done, as you can imagine. So we have to remind ourselves every day, basically, and our colleagues about report bugs rather than complain internally. Do not fork blindly, contribute your solution if you have found one, and go upstream ideally before you ship the thing. And then complain afterwards because it wasn't accepted, upstream is completely different than what I shipped. Yeah, if you didn't report it early enough, that can happen. That kind of works by now in our group. I mean, this is our mission, it should work. We have a couple of good examples for that. We see on, you can see on our pages and our involvement there. It's more and more also coming regarding Debian. So to be fair, I'm not a Debian developer, and we unfortunately still don't have a Debian developer in our groups. But we try to be better there, and we try to be active. I mentioned the Bazel example. We had some contributions to perf, sometimes small, sometimes bigger things. It's evolving. It's getting better, I hope. What we also do is talking about the same story to our suppliers. So if you think about board support packages, Linux baseline support, upstream first is a requirement. Well, it's a process as well for them as it is for us, but this is a continuous story, and actually using Debian as an argumentation here is easier than using other things where you basically can more easily customize and more easily deviate, and that helps moving forward and keep reminding also our supply chain here. It remains challenging, obviously, for our product developments. I mean, there are some examples where the groups are larger, where there is some capacity, some time, and some experience to do also that work I'm talking about also in the product side. But generally, it remains hard. I mean, the focus is on the product to get done, to get shipped. And that's not really about getting these things upstream. Although there are good examples as well, this is remaining a challenge, and well, that's why we exist, and that's why we try to help where this is not directly possible. The other thing that you may wonder, okay, why aren't you getting continuously involved? This is also tricky if you're in a corporate environment. You can easily get a funding and okay for a certain task to be done, and then it's done. It's way harder to get the commitment beyond the next fiscal year about, yeah, let's do this for next 3 years or next 5 years. So before we rush forward and say, yeah, no problem, we take over the maintenance of that, we really have to think about, is this realistic for us to keep up the promises? So better be careful with that. So with that, I'd like to summarize. So I think Siemens loves Debian a lot. You've seen some examples. There are even more of that. And again, I didn't talk about the IT at all. In general, that implies that we love open source a lot. So if you like to see more of this, there's a nice page now, a landing page we have. Have a look. And last but not least, actually also, we are hiring on this area. So, thank you a lot. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks a lot for your talk, Jan. So it is now time for questions.
I don't really have a question. I just want to let you know that I took some pictures of you with your own phone that you lost today.
You're my hero.
Yes, and you owe me €4 for the taxi because, hey, he made me pay.
Good. Great. Thank you a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is a question from the Etherpad from Andreas. He says, I consider blends an interesting topic for the applications at Siemens. You can group software in tasks, and my naive imagination is that to run your ecosystem, you have several different tasks. He also says, by the way, TensorFlow effort was started in the COVID-19 sprint of Debian made a blend. So even here we have common goals. Nice that TensorFlow is really needed by others and will hopefully fully available in Next Stable. And he also says blends are also helping to attract new developers. So talk to us if you want to become a DD.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot.
Oh, okay.
Hey, thanks for your talk. You've mentioned several devices and products like the MRI machines and the IoT gateway and so on. And I was wondering, so it's nice that you're running Debian on that. I was wondering, since I never particularly enjoyed the development tools on Windows, if other customers also want to have a Linux-based IDE or something. Or even when you said human-machine interfaces, I'm not sure if you also implied that these now typically run Debian.
Yeah, so the two areas actually of activity. One is the development environment. If I talk about development environment, you probably talk about our own when we do building those devices. It's a story of its own. We are now basing more and more of our developers Linux native inside the company. It's an endeavor, it's a continuous endeavor. It starts with Ubuntu, the next version will be Debian. So we also have the option to run on Debian desktops development for Debian-based products. Good thing, I guess. What do our customers want? It differs. So depending on what kind of level you are addressing. So if you're talking to a customer who's building Docker-based or container-based workloads, they probably have something pretty close or native Linux by now running. So we have these kind of users. If they need an IDE, not from us usually, yes or no, not a topic, but it exists. I mean, you can get a lot of things now, even the Visual Studio users can now use it on Linux, and they do. So there are options on that. Regarding HMIs, we have both. So some of them are Windows-based, some of them are Debian-based. Those which are more open, I would say, traditionally come more from the Windows space, but by now we also have offerings there for Debian, or for Linux in general, not only Debian. And we do have obviously also closed, so the sense that the customer doesn't see and cannot change the UI, displays, interfaces, where in the end there is running something in the background which is Linux-based. Yeah.
It's great work of Siemens with Debian and free software. There is a possibility to be Platinum sponsor for the next DevConf. Could you help us?
Yes, yes. I mean, we try to be as good as possible on that. Yes, we can discuss this about it. Sure.
Another question from the Etherpad. Apertis, A-P-E-R-T-I-S, is a fully open source Debian derivative with similar goals, industrial and embedded license compliance security. Are you aware of this project?
Sorry, can you say the name again?
Apertis.
Apertis, yes, we are aware of this project. We are also in discussion with these folks behind it, yes.
All right. So there are areas for potential collaboration.
There's even more Debian lovers outside in the industrial space. So this, just to let you know, is not just Siemens. And we are trying to be integrated with them, all of them.
Okay, can I ask my question then?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, I see that Siemens is interested in the metaverse, which could be defined by an emergent system of systems bridging the physical with the digital in a large-scale, persistent manner within a community of people. I put a press release on the website, on the Etherpad. My question is, how does Siemens manage the data it collects? And is some of it made open? And if so, how? There must surely be layers of privacy. Is this data high quality following RDF or resource description framework guidelines? Is it properly linked to allow context like 5-star data? And I'm fully aware that you might not be the person to talk to about this, but can you then suggest who we could talk to work on this?
Yeah, so metaverse is definitely a topic that, since recently even more, has high attention in our company. It's still evolving in the sense that I cannot really talk about the overall solution. We have reached out to partners and working with them on that, but it's still a new thing. Regarding the question of openness, and I think this applies not just to this technology, it's a recurring topic. I mean, you have to remember in the end, even if we are using underneath free software, like many of us are using, above of that is at some point the commercial offering. It's at some point the differentiation, the IP, or you name it, whatever. So the openness at some point ends for reasons we can discuss about, but this is the commercial environment. So whenever we don't see something as differentiating for us, we try to go in this direction, being open. We try to talk to our suppliers to make it in an open way. It's in our own benefit. Obviously, if colleagues say, well, this is the way we differentiate from our competitors, the discussion of openness is a bit different. And so I cannot really talk about what's happening there or what can be done there at this stage, also because this is also the area where I'm not involved in. I'm not involved in doing proprietary software development. So my fun talk always is I'm doing it for 15 years and I haven't written not a single line, but very, very few line proprietary codes all the time. So this is also the point where you don't have the influence directly because you're not involved there.
Yeah, I fully understand that, and it's definitely a complex issue. I think my point is that data and the source code are two very different things, and that handles differently. And I was just wondering if there is someone at Siemens who is thinking about this, because I would like to talk to them. Thank you.
We can try to follow up, yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? No, okay, so a quick reminder, please register yourself for your Debian Day Trip option. You have got 20 minutes before midday, so please do it, because if not, you will not be able to do the Debian Day Trip. So thanks a lot, Jan, and keep enjoying DebConf.
Thank you.